Now, in October of 2017, there was an attempt on the life of the new Saudi crown prince, this bin Salman, who replaced Al-Walid, and was helping Trump. We're going to get to how much he was helping Trump in just a sec here, and that this little operation that was set for him in Las Vegas was taken down at the last second, and he was protected, and and from then those Al-Walid so there's conflicting reports whether he's still in custody or he's been exterminated now for this little indiscretion from behind the scenes. But yeah, so they had a plan to do that. Now, what happened at this Las Vegas battle was when bin Salman was saved by the U.S. military through the intel received by the NSA and then given to bin Salman by Trump. He was asked to take on an even bigger role, and he agreed to do it. He basically was saying to Trump, anything, my brother, anything, my brother. So what happened next? The next thing is that staying in the United States is that on Trump's behalf, bin Salman went to all of the major corporations, and in particular the media companies, so Google, Apple, Twitter, Facebook, Microsoft, all of these main companies were all targeted by bin Salman, and on Trump's behalf he visited all of them. And of course this is all verifiable. I've got all of the documentation, all of the imagery showing all of these meetings taking place in late October, early November of 2017. And this is bin Salman essentially helping Trump to do all of this work for him. And he went and he visited all of these puppet heads for all of these puppet companies, and he basically read them the riot act and showed them the documentation that the NSA had on all of them, and basically said, you play for Team Trump, and Trump is now in control of these corporations, or declass. All of this information will be declassified one by one, and each one of you will be offered up to the masses as a child murderer. So they all capitulated, and there's the money shots of all of these various heads of all of these various companies, including Jack Dorsey for Twitter. So all this stuff that's been going on lately with the censorship of Trump by Twitter, it's all part of the game that needs to be played out for people to get angry and to wake up to what the heck is the evil that's going on, and to say something about it and to do something about it and begin to change their lives. So that's real. All of that is real, and bin Salman helped Trump do this, and he went to all of those CEO heads of all of those major media companies and social media companies. From there, then, as everyone knows, in middle and late November of 2017, Trump took his Asian tour, and again, it's the same thing. He went to Japan first and did the same thing. The Japanese capitulated without much fight at all, and the symbolic gesture was that at this sumo wrestling championship event that was taking place, they had Trump come on stage, and Trump was the one. This is supposed to be left for only the highest figure of the land to present this trophy to the champion sumo wrestler, and Trump did it. Trump had this enormous trophy in the center of this ring, and it is the symbolization of Japanese submission to Trump, the NSA, and the Q plan, and capitulating control over to Trump. From there, now a lot of this has come out, and a lot of the QAnons did great work in figuring this out. But all of this stuff with North Korea started when Trump left Japan and flew directly to South Korea. And this first meeting was ostensibly to see if they could talk peace with North Korea. But no, what it was is to get all of these Asian governments to capitulate their control over to Trump via the documents that they had. Because remember, one of the biggest arms of procuring children for adrenochrome has always been Asia and Southeast Asia. And the Southeast Asian countries have been in cahoots with Hollywood and the Washington, D.C. politicians. So a lot of these people who need children have weighed heavily and have leaned heavily upon these Southeast Asian governments to procure for them children. They demand it from them, and they've done it for years. So Trump showed up showing all of the documentation that they had, showing that they were all complicit and that these were all capital punishment criminal acts. So they all capitulated. And in secret, with that first meeting that Trump had to South Korea, in secret, Trump went to the North Korean border and he met with Kim and began the process of peace talks with the North Koreans. And then Trump, in subterfuge, in complete silence, completed those things on his own. And then, of course, as a huge surprise to the mainstream media, announced his treaty with Kim and the North Koreans. So all of this was done because all Trump had to do was to show him the power that he had. And that was now all of these countries. Remember, folks, again, all of these countries are not just stepping down from doing evil. They are also being forced into helping the Q plan. So all of these countries are now part of this process to help. Okay? So a lot of people were, now the next stop was China, and this was huge. And Mark, I know that you have been very, very pleasantly surprised to see what the Chinese Free Peoples have announced publicly through Steve Bannon.
That's right. Another story the mainstream media just forgot to tell us about.
Completely forgot to mention that China has kicked out the communist devil-worshipping Satanists, and
it's not that big of a deal. It's just a small story for the end of the news.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a lot of people in China or anything, right? I mean, you know, maybe 1 million, I think. I don't know. I don't think there's that many. It's a huge deal, folks, and they ignored all of it. Now, and this is huge stuff. So first, everybody knows, but the press didn't make a big deal of it, but in the spring, not long after Trump had become president, the President Xi of China visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Trump's big resort house in Florida. And he visited with Trump. Trump hasn't been president for that long. And people were just absolutely shocked. And they were also shocked because, you know, the mainstream didn't do much of a job in reporting on this or anything. But he did. He came all the way from China and met Trump at Trump's leisure at Mar-a-Lago. That's a huge deal. So after Trump cleans all the house in Southeast Asia, he then goes to China. And where do he and Xi meet in China? In the Forbidden City. This is huge. It's called the Forbidden City for a reason, because it is a very private, spiritual, secretive place to Chinese heritage, Chinese culture, and that's where they met. And of course, that was at Trump's request, because that was this is there. So every one of these things, there's always a marker. There's always a marker showing how each of these nations has capitulated powerfully to Trump as their overlord. And this is meeting with Trump in the Forbidden City. This is probably the biggest one. You can't imagine, folks, how big of a deal this was. And of course, the mainstream media, just kind of silent about all of that. And at that meeting, apparently the Americans were very, very surprised to find out is how desperately all of these Chinese officials wanted these evil communists within their midst to be kicked out. They wanted this. They wanted to get away from all of this evil because remember, some of the worst possible things have taken place in China, and it has horrified people who have had a conscience. Not everyone is an evil person. People do have a conscience, and it affected a lot of the Chinese, and they were horrified by the things that they were being asked to do in China, and they wanted this. And so they met Trump with open arms, and they capitulated to Trump's authority willingly because they wanted this end to the cabal rule over them through the subterfuge of a communist state. So after China, Trump went to Vietnam, and you got it. And at this very public ceremony, Trump was placed slightly ahead and to the right of the Vietnam president, and showed himself to be in charge. And Vietnamese. So what the Vietnamese promised was to stop their participation in procuring children for
the human trafficking.
Yep. So he didn't leave until they capitulated quickly. Most of these did not put up a fight, folks. Israel put up the biggest fight. Now, this is a big one for me, and boy, you talk about going into the lion's den. The big one after Vietnam and the end of the Asian tour for Trump is in January, I believe it was, very early in 2018. Trump attended a very, very famous meeting because of everyone who was purported to be there at Davos, Switzerland. Do you guys remember this? This is January of 2018. This was quite a big deal. Soros was there as well. He was present at this as well. And at this meeting, you're talking about the biggest international corporations in the world. This is it. These are the key players, and these are the biggest, most evil corporations that are at this meeting at Davos, Switzerland. It was called by Trump. That's not what they said publicly, of course, but it was called by Trump. Trump came in late again. He sat at the very middle of the table, and basically everyone was kind of wrapped around Trump. Because he was the boss of this meeting. And Trump laid out documents and folders. He started with envelopes, very similar to what occurred at the George Bush funeral when he first arrived. And you had a lot of very, very worried people for the meeting the next day because of what was said in these envelopes the day before. And then the next day at this meeting, he provided a whole bunch more information about each one of these evil fucks, and the meeting very, very quickly. Now, this is kind of a scary place. It would be for me anyways, to go to. Davos, Switzerland, and all of the caves and tunnels underneath those mountains, and they could have abducted him and said that this was some kind of kidnapping, and they don't know where he is, but they're going to use all of their resources to try to. This is scary, big stuff. That you talk about
I'm sure
cojones.
He didn't go here alone.
No, I'm sure he didn't either. But still, you talk about cojones. Yeah. I think this was Trump at his most vulnerable. Was this January 2018 meeting in the Lion's Den at Davos, Switzerland, and Soros was there
for that trip.
Yes, right. Yeah, and scared little rodents, they capitulated quite quickly. I think Trump played it really well with those envelopes the first night, and then made them sweat it overnight, and then the folders the next day, and they capitulated, and Trump did not leave without them. And remember again, folks, this is not just saying to Nestle that you're not going to poison the water anymore.
Or steal the water anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. But you're also working for us, and what we ask you to do, you do. And if you don't do, we go public one by one. We don't make this look like a big conspiracy and we're nuts. You're a lone nut. You're a kook. You're a sick child abuser, and we're going to pick on you individually. That's what Trump said to each of them. We're not going to make this a conspiracy that'll help you. We're going to single you out and eat you alive. So they all capitulated at this meeting, and this is a huge one because these are the biggest companies. HSBC was there. This is evil. This is the faces of evil were at this meeting, and George Soros was at this meeting. Mm-hmm.
There has been a notable absence of ISIS terror attacks in recent years. I know there was a huge spate of them. I'm trying to remember the years. Maybe it was around 2016, 2017. But then I don't think we've heard from ISIS for a good couple of years or more. I wonder if that's a coincidence.
John McCain. Now let's do the John McCain math here. When was John McCain alive? When was John McCain spending a lot of time in the Middle East? And then when did John McCain get taken out and have a dishonorable discharge and a dishonorable funeral where the flag on his coffin was askewed, pointing out that he was dishonorably discharged from the military before he was shot in the back of the head. So yeah, let's do the John McCain mathematics here, okay? And then you add that up, and I think you can come to an answer. You can figure out when ISIS just seemed to go away. John McCain had to nurse those idiots into doing the things that they did. ISIS was his charge, and that's why you have so many shots of McCain over in the Middle East, hanging out with all four of the main ISIS evil heads. You know, we're never going to find all of them. And no, he just happened to be having lunch with all four of them. Yeah, they're just his little buddies. So
I think they've all got coronavirus now, which is why we don't hear from them.
That's exactly right. So, these people, sickening. So then Trump went to India, and the Modi, who was the Indian leader, very publicly. And by the way, this is really a good one, because I'm not sure necessarily why it worked this way. Maybe it was Trump's idea, I don't know. But from Modi, the Indian leader, onwards, you see all of these international presidents and prime ministers all coming to these public meetings now with their arms wrapped about and their hands all wrapped about, like they're symbolizing that their hands are in cuffs.
That their hands are tied.
Their hands are literally tied. So the first one to do this was Modi. And at this, and it was such a weird thing. People were kind of looking at him and going, "It's kind of odd. Like, why does he keep doing this?" And he was trying to draw attention to the fact that he was clasping his wrists because he had cuffs on them. So don't blame me. Don't get angry at me. I'm sorry, my hands are tied, is what he was saying. So he took India and made India work for him. The Central Americas, starting with Mexico, AMLO, the corrupt, oh no, he's a good guy. No, he's a kindly old man. And AMLO, he cares about the Mexican people. He's going to change things. He's evil. But anyways, he was quite resistant, and Trump actually made comments to that about how inhospitable Mexico was to him, and people were just like thinking, well, yeah, because you were all doing all that wall stuff and stuff. No. It was about...
Or you're racist and you don't like Mexicans.
That's right. No. It was
Trump's
about
not racist.
AMLO didn't want to give up eating children and give up his power to Trump, kind of liked his little gig. But they did. He went to, from Mexico City, he went to all of the Central American countries, and they all signed over. And then in all of these meetings, all of these various leaders, AMLO included, all were doing these clapping their hands together and their wrists together like they were being bound and forced into doing this. And I won't even get into it, but there's kind of a reason with these Spanish types. But anyways, we move forward. We get to Brazil, and the new Brazilian president, or I guess he's a president in Brazil. He thinks he's got the best job in the world because he's far away from all the bright lights of the mainstream news, and he can just rape and go to the bank in Brazil. No, Trump pays him a visit and tells him he's working for Trump or else. And so they have this very public meeting where, once again, Bolsonaro, he clamped his hands together and his wrists together, showing that he was forced into doing this, and he submitted over to Trump as well. And then after Trump leaves, guess what? One of the first acts that Bolsonaro did as the president, this is very key everywhere, by the way, folks, is all of these then key arrests after Trump left these countries of key pedophilia cover companies and individuals. And so Oprah's best friend in the world, that beautiful spiritual man, John of God, who is running one of the largest child trafficking and adrenochrome production facilities in the world, just an absolute monster, Oprah's best pal. He was arrested shortly after Trump left by Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, and they took dear, sweet man of God, literal Christian, Jesus, who maybe looked more Latin than Swiss, but anyways, and he was arrested, and the rest is history there. So then he went to Argentina, and Argentina has long been kind of a safe haven because it's as far as people can get away. Obama, the Obamas, Mike and his little bitch Barack, they used to go there quite a bit because they were planning their safe escape, their retreat. If certain things should come out, they spent a lot of time in Argentina as well, as did a lot of people. It was kind of like their hideaway place. Trump went there. And this Argentinian president, who is such a corrupt person, is just brutal. Trump was so disrespectful to this guy.
Well, they had the G7 in Argentina, right?
Yeah, that's right. They had I think that's right. So therefore that meant they had to have the global banksters there as well and stuff. So there's actually quite a lot of people that were there as well, and but Trump's behavior to this Argentine president was just brutal, just treating him like the scum of the earth that he is, and of course he capitulated. And
the mainstream press always presents this as Trump just not observing protocol, and he's just this oaf, and he's uncouth and all this.
Yeah.
Just a buffoon.
That's right. Well, the big thing, the big thing with this Argentinian president is that Trump just up and walked off the stage after, I guess Trump had spent, I guess he felt long enough, 5 or 10 minutes for a couple of questions and some photo op, and he just up and left and didn't say a word to anyone, including that Argentine president. And again, it's a power move, and basically just saying, you're scum of the earth. We know who you are. You're scum of the earth. Just obey what we tell you or else. And that's what he did. And then at the G7 summit in Canada, he very fortunately, of course, had horrific pedophile and adrenochromer Justin Trudeau, of course, was hosting the meeting. He was there, but Angela Merkel was there as well, and she was one of the big ones that he wanted to be there as well, because she didn't play a major role back in Brussels. So at this meeting, he got everyone there, but in particular, it was the capitulation of Justin Trudeau of Canada and Angela Merkel of Germany. And both of them did the same thing. In fact, Justin Trudeau spent most of the G7 with his hands clasped together like he was in handcuffs. So, and Trump did a lot of very, very suggestive gestures towards Justin Trudeau as well, kind of pointing out some stuff. One of the ones that Trump is kind of cute, that treated the absolute worst with the most disrespect, he just treated him like a little child, was Macron, the French president, and of course he is just so known for being just an absolute Rothschild stooge and a horrible adrenochrome. And the stuff that Trump did with this clown in public, in front of the press and the media, to make him look bad was actually incredible. So he got Macron to submit, capitulate as well. Now, Theresa May in your country resigned to allow Bojo to take over as a Trump supporter. And she exited. And do you remember Theresa May? Remember, Mark? She was crying and crying and crying, and she couldn't control herself. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Okay, well, the real reason that she was actually crying is not just all the stuff that they had on her and that he showed, but that Trump actually showed the intel from the NSA that the Phoenicians were planning on taking her out. She was actually set for an assassination, and Trump apparently showed her all the intel, all the detailing on where and when she was going to be hit and how. And I guess it just...
So he basically saved her life.
He did save her life.
What would have been the objective of taking her out then?
To get Boris Johnson in, somebody who was going to be strong. And you think about that, Boris Johnson...
Or did they have a plan to put somebody else in?
Yeah, for many, that's right. They must have had somebody else that they wanted in. And so Boris Johnson is a strong character. Now, he does appear to be strongly evil, but again, if he's playing this role, then he is a very strong character.
He must be a damn good actor because he's got me fooled.
I think we should have some awards after all this.
It took me a while to come around to the idea of Trump, but yeah, I can see that, but I don't see it with Boris.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree too. It was he sure had me fooled as well. Yeah, I really thought that he was just another one of these. But I guess the real trigger was that speech at the UN. You know, half the speech was sort of good old Boris and, you know, vaccinations. But the first half of that speech at the UN that he did, now that was beginning of April, end of March, that speech that he did at the UN in New York. When at the UN, there was almost no one in attendance because they had all fled, because they're all...
Looked like he was by himself.
They're all child traffickers. They had all fled into hiding. But that first half of that speech is Boris Johnson kind of telling you that there's a control mechanism in place and that an evil cabal is ruling things. But you know what? Get your shots. He finished his speech with, you know, that the COVID is real and that these vaccinations are very good for you and important. So
yeah, well, that's why people have a hard time accepting that he's on the side of the people with all the stuff that he's put out there.
Yes, and I don't think anyone should after hearing this, I don't think anyone should turn and make Boris Johnson a good friend of theirs or anything like that. No, remove this fake, illegal, evil government from power. Don't wait for the November 2020 election to do it. You make your own change. This is your country. And I think Boris Johnson should be taken down. He's just has been a horrific prime minister, surrounded by horrific people. But so yeah, I just wanted to give you that stuff on Theresa May and her just crying like a baby as she stepped down and stepped away from it all. they didn't even like her. In the end, they didn't like her. Nobody likes me, says Teresa.
We didn't like her either.
Yep, that's right. And then, of course, very famously, his little trip to Buckingham Palace and the royals. And there's a lot of conjecture if that was even the real queen who was there that day, because she most famously has, I think, the most body doubles in place. But his behavior, Trump's behavior that day was just incredible. He just walked all over the place wherever he went. And that Camilla Parker, she really hated it. There are lots of photos of her just incensed by Trump's apparent lack of protocol, right? And Trump was just walking all over the place. And one of the great shots that exist is that Trump walked right up to Prince Charles, which I think is a good indicator that that wasn't Charles who was there, because that's, I think, what Trump is pointing out. Trump stepped ahead of Prince Charles and started to walk away at a pace that Charles couldn't keep up. And he walked right over to Charles' private guard and just began shooting the breeze with them and having a good conversation. You can imagine the kind of questions or the kind of statements he was making to these guys that had to observe what the royals were up to, hey? So, yeah, and then the coup de grace shot was that Trump managed to get himself and have a photo op in Winston Churchill's very famous leather-bound chair. And Trump has the shot where he kind of famously replicates a famous image of Winston Churchill, just sort of exerting.
He's looking like a boss.
Yep, looking like the boss. Exactly, looking like he did on The Apprentice as the boss, and firing people left, right, and center. You're fired. And I think that's the significance of that shot. And again, when we do the video package for this, which eventually, of course, if you want to put that version on your site too, you'll be able to do that as well. That'll be awesome. So, and then from there, he went to Russia, and boy, was it